Hi, I'm Dr. Jen Barna, founder of DocWorking.com, and I am very excited to introduce you to our first podcast. Thank you for joining us. On our podcast, we're going to be bringing very interesting guests, such as, of course, our coaches who have a breadth of experience and can speak to many of the issues that we as physicians are facing. And we're also going to be bringing physicians who have made very interesting choices in their career paths. And it's going to be a very interesting ride, and I hope that you will join us. Right now, thank you. Let's get started. I'm here today with our life coaches, Gabriella Dennery, MD, and Jill Farmer. Both Gabriella and Jill are highly experienced life coaches who have worked with physicians extensively and are bringing a breadth of experience in many areas that are relevant to us as physicians. Gabriella is a trained physician internist, and Jill actually has a very interesting background. She has an Emmy award-winning background as a journalist. When I knew her back in the 90s, she was a celebrity and has continued to be such, and has moved from that to being in the field of coaching. I'm excited to hear about both of your backgrounds in your own words. And Gabriella, will you start by telling us about your background?
Absolutely. And so as you mentioned before, I was a practicing physician. I was an internist for many years in very busy city clinics. And after a bout with burnout, I made some serious changes in my life, and I decided to step away. I was pulled by my next love, which is music, and my next love, which is ministry. And so all of these at this point in my life are coming together nicely. Along the way, I started training as a life coach, which also brought just really powerful conversations about healing and how to live your best life. And so I'm excited about working with physicians who are at a point in their lives where they're ready to put themselves first, their well-being first, and they're excited about revamping their lives on a day-to-day basis and looking towards the future. And what is the vision for the future? And yes, you can get there, absolutely. And I'm here to support that process. And so I'm absolutely excited to be part of the DocWorking team.
We are thrilled to have you. Thank you. And
Thank you.
Gabriella has already done some podcasting for DocWorking. And Gabriella is going to work now with Jill to continue the podcast. And so I'm going to have you, Gabriella, if you would, introduce Jill.
No problem. All right, excellent. Thank you. And Jill, we had a fabulous conversation yesterday, and so it's an absolute pleasure. Welcome to DocWorking, and thank you for being part of the team. And so, start us off by telling a bit more about yourself and what brought you to coaching.
Thank you. Well, it's so fun to be working with both of you and Jen, to be part of Jen's vision to give next generation and every working physician out there resources that weren't available to her and weren't available to you, Gabriella, as you were launching careers and then working as physicians. So it's really exciting to be part of something that I think is going to help make the practice of medicine more sustainable and help people reach their individual goals as human beings, both within their work settings and in blending into the rest of their life as well. So I have come to this work. I am not a physician, and I never played one on TV. And I love coaching physicians. And the way that came into being, I came to coaching because I was working full-time as a TV reporter and anchor, and had been doing that for a number of years, and was married and had 2 young children, and for years, I felt like we were living kind of in a fire hose. There was so much going on, so much to do, never enough time to do it. And finally, I made this decision that I thought was going to fix all my problems. I was going to quit my job in what many would have considered the height of my career as a journalist. And then I was finally going to be able to be the citizen of the world and mom and wife that I had wanted to be. And what I discovered about 6 months after I made that decision to just quit my job, which was going to fix all my problems, is I woke up and I realized that same driving pressure of stress and there's not enough time and there's too much to do and not enough time to get it all done was still, that drumbeat was still pounding inside of me. And it was the first time it had dawned on me that one of the factors that played into this highly pressurized life and environment that I was living in was my thinking and the way that I approached who wanted to show up. So that kind of awakening, it was kind of a bottom moment. I say that because it was this moment of like, I made this huge decision and gave up this career that was supposed to fix me, and I'm still stressed out and overwhelmed. And it was an awakening at the same time of awareness that maybe there was a way that I could make some shifts in my thinking and in the way that I approached the world that would bring me a greater sense of, I still love being productive and achieving and doing things that matter, but doing it without the cost of having me feel so stressed and so tired. And so I began a journey of training, originally just kind of for my own mental health, to learn more about how our brains work and how our brains react to stress and overwhelm and all those kinds of things. And that led me to getting certification and then master certification in coaching. And I have been working always since the very beginning of my practice with physicians. And do you want me to tell you the story of how that kind of worked out? It was a little bit of a fluke how I first started coaching physicians.
Definitely.
Oh,
Yeah,
absolutely.
definitely.
So I was asked by one of my early clients when I was first coaching just people one-on-one over kind of a broad issue of life coaching in general. And that happened to be a physician. And she and I were working a lot on time and stress management issues. And she said, I'm trying to share these ideas that we're working on together with my colleagues. And then they asked me these questions. And I don't know how to answer the questions. Would you come in and speak at our academic women's network at the teaching institution where she was a cardiologist? And I said, sure. What do you want me to talk about? And she said, I want you to talk about this time stuff. And so I was putting together this talk and I named it somewhat provocatively, There's Not Enough Time and Other Lies We Tell Ourselves, meaning not that we don't have a lot to do and a finite amount of time to do it. I wasn't trying to be too glib, but to begin to recognize that the story that we don't have enough time triggers some biochemical and other reactions in our body that don't end up actually serving us in the end. And so that was kind of the nature of the talk. And they told me to expect, for the average panel or talk that they did for this, usually they had 15 to 30 people. And when I walked into the auditorium that morning, there were almost 200 people, and there were hospitalists and there were admins and there were all kinds of people. And I'd been doing a lot of things in my coaching practice, trying to see how I could be of service with the things that I was learning and the way I wanted to support people. And this was the first time I was like, these guys are all hurting and suffering from time and stress management issues. And maybe the way that I have learned to walk on this, and am learning always, I come to this work not because I'm a excellent time and stress management expert. You know, I joke, the Washington Post, I did some work with them a few years ago, and they called me a time and stress management expert. And I was like, major imposter syndrome, because I'm like, I'm actually pretty terrible at this naturally. This is all things I've had to learn to bring more peace and less suffering. to my own existence, and it's worked. And that's what I'm sharing with others. So that's how I first began. From there, my next time speaking was at the American College of Cardiology, because somebody who was in that audience said, I think we need to get this message out. So I don't, and haven't worked for the last 12 years now exclusively with physicians, but they've always been, and healthcare in general has been a big part of the work that I do around time and stress management. And it's a group of people I just love working with.
Mhm, mhm.
Wonderful.
So what have been some of your results, do you think? I mean, once people start implementing the tools, or physicians start implementing the tools that you teach them, what are some of the feedback that you've gotten?
Well, I'll give a short answer, because I want to ask you a little bit about this too, because what I experience a lot of times in working with physicians is they're very used to having, just from med school on, and work schedules, everything is very
Mhm,
predetermined for them, and sometimes they don't take the time to think about what they really want, what their vision is for, how they want things to look in their life, other than I just wish it was different than what it is, less busy, less stressful. And so I find one of the most rewarding things working with people is being able to say, I really want to give you a permission slip to say what it is you want to do. And I know that's one of the areas
mhm.
where you really shine in supporting people, is helping them get a vision for what they want their life to look like. So tell us a little bit about how that process works for you as you're working with people around that
As
vision
I'm
side
working,
of things.
absolutely, and thank you for that. Yes, I mean, the bottom line is have an idea of where you want to go, and yes, to give people permission to go ahead and do that, to give them a safe space where they can start imagining life again, as opposed to just being lost in minutia. And it's very easy to do so, to get lost in the day-to-day minutia. I just need to get to this next thing and this next thing, and whoa, I don't have time. And it's like, no, as you pointed out, it really is a shift in mindset to be able to take a step back and start envisioning, imagining. And when I tell somebody who says, well, I don't know what my vision is, I don't know what life is going to look like in 10 years, I just want to get through to the next day or the next month or the next week, then it's like, okay, so let's talk about what you're curious about, what you believe yourself to be good at and best at and feels good to you, and really to start opening the doors, kind of cracking that
Mhm.
fence that yes, you do have a vision, we just have to find it. Yes, you do have a purpose. It's about reconnecting to it. What drove you through this path of medicine is what's going to, that kind of courage and work ethic and speed of learning something is what's going to get you through the next step, and to be able to provide a space where they believe they have a next step. And so that's the exciting part of the work. It can be challenging sometimes, I'm not going to lie, because
Mhm.
people have to get to a point, they have to accept that, if they're at that point, and that's where coaching, I think, is a great modality. They're at that point. It's like there's something out there that's different for me. I'm not sure what that may be or what that looks like, but I know that I'm living now is not good for me right in this moment
Mhm.
anymore. That something has to shift, and it's okay.
Mhm.
It's okay for it to shift. And that's the beauty of visioning. That's the beauty of reconnecting with values, what's most important to you. Those are important grounding work that will take you everywhere you want to go. And to have take the time right up front to establish that foundation, to really have an idea of where you're going, but who you're about. I know after med school and residency, I kind of lost track of who I was. I had no idea. I was just getting through the day and the next day and the next day. Even as an attending, it really took a lot of inner work to be able to say, you know what, there is life beyond what I'm living now, and to get to then say, okay, well, I got to roll up my sleeves and do it. I can't just keep doing what I've been doing or thinking the way I've been thinking and expecting a different
Mhm.
result. And so that to me
Right.
is really the mindset work, the shift in perspective work. And although circumstances may look the same today, but if you think about it and look at it in a different way, life will change. And that to me is what's exciting about anchoring, helping somebody to anchor in what matters to them, and envisioning something that may not be the typical doctor path. It may be something else.
Yeah.
So, how do
Well,
you
given
feel?
your experience as an MD, and you too, Jen, I'm curious to hear from both of you, looking back on those years when it was so hard in those early years and there was so much to do and so many other things to balance. If you would have had DocWorking out there as a place to go and find resources, self-paced courses you could take to learn about things that you weren't learning or hadn't learned in med
Yeah.
school, or coaching, what kind of a difference do you think it would have made for you? And Jen, can you start, and then I want to hear from you too, Gabrielle. I'm really curious about that.
Sure.
Yeah, I think, the whole motivation for starting DocWorking was really that sensation of having learned everything the hard way, and that there is an easier way to do all of these things. And by bringing physicians who have had creative approaches and have been successful, and then by bringing coaches who also have been successful at moving physicians through at a much more efficient way, and having them reframe some of the issues that we commonly deal with, that would allow people to do things in a more efficient way than I did. I mean, I kind of just muddled my way through. And when Gabriella said, going day to day, I mean, that's the way I think a lot of us survive the training. And you just, it's like your goal is just to get through that day, and that works. But in the long run, suddenly you find yourself and you're done with your training, and you need to take a step back and say, like, okay, what about beyond today? Let's think about that a little bit. And if you have the support to make a plan for that, then you can create your own unique vision and take the steps to get yourself there, rather than kind of muddling through, in a zigzag pattern that potentially wastes your time, or maybe it just doesn't get you to your destination as quickly as you could otherwise. So I think our goal is to help people figure out what they're trying to accomplish, whether it is well-being, whether it is a life goal or a vision, or whether it is something as simple as just getting on the path to sorting through your day-to-day life, and making it more enjoyable, or working on relationships. There's so many options, and every single individual is different, but what we offer is a team to help everybody, each person, craft their own vision and help them to reach that. So I think, Gabriella, do you find that a lot of the physicians, both of you, Jill too, the physicians that you guys work with, are kind of sometimes coming from that type of short-term survival mode, or are they often beyond that when they come to you?
It's a mix,
Gabriella?
really. Oh, yes, thank you. It's a mix. There are some that have started, and I think it depends also on what stage they are in their career, what experiences they've had so far, and have gotten to that place of, that something's missing, or there's something else out there for me, and they need support in that, in figuring out details of a plan of what is the vision, what are they going to, what are the next steps, and how they're working towards that. And then there are those who, yes, that are in that overwhelm. Oh my God, I don't know what to do, but I still want to be a doctor and I still love what I do, but this is an impossible situation. And so then that becomes more specific, as Jill, you mentioned, and that's your specialty, time management, how to kind of reshift the thinking in terms of, yes, this is doable. Delegate your life. We had, hopefully we'll be talking. We've been talking about that for some of our recordings. It's like you don't have to do everything. all the time in every way. It's like there's delegate your life. How are ways that you can set up a support system? I think for me, what I would love to know, the most valuable asset I had as an attending, which would have been great to have as a resident, was a mentor. And she was phenomenal. She was actually a pediatrician who worked in the same clinic I did, who burnt out as well. But after about a year off, she came back. And she was probably, oh my God, she was pissed at the world when she left. When she came back, it looks like she had grown angel's wings on the back and just having a good old time. And just, I was like, I want some of that. What did you do? What happened? And she really just sat me down and guided me through a lot of my rough spots in that moment, the anger towards the administration, the administrators, they're not doing what they're supposed to do, et cetera, et cetera. She says, look, no, 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 no. You are responsible for your happiness, not the administrators, not the you. So for that physician that is at that point where they're realizing, yeah, I can be responsible for my happiness, my well-being, and I want to be, but I don't know how, because now I need to shift out of a way of being and doing, and it's got to be different now, but I don't know how. So I think coaching becomes a very valuable tool in that respect, and I think that the tools that will be made available through Doc Coaching will support that process.
Yeah, I
Jill,
couldn't
what do you
agree
think?
anymore. Yeah, that's all really, really good stuff. And I think, we know from a lot of the emerging research around burnout that when one of the big factors that relates to that is high pressure and low agency. And sometimes, especially when
Yep.
you're fairly new in your career, in a lot of careers, but particularly in medicine, like you're kind of doing what you're supposed to be doing in this defined way, in terms of every minute of your day is kind of scheduled out in this process. And so helping people to find the reconnect to where they do have some agency. So kind of back to your question, I think, Jen, about like what do I see in terms of the things that are coming in from physicians, and do I see or recognize the pattern that you experienced, which is this like, it was really effective to put your nose to the grindstone and just sort of like push it out, grind it out, be almost superhuman compared to other people I work with in other sectors, in terms of the ability to have this, fortitude and physical and emotional strength to kind of get through all the challenges of training. It's harrowing, and noticing that gets taken into the job, and that's a lot of the people that come to me. I think we tend to attract as coaches the people who are meant to connect with based on what we have to give them. And a lot of people who come to me are in that state of overwhelm, and they're just like, oh. And what I see happening often as a pattern is that nose to the grindstone, tendency to do what needed to be done to get through that harrowing and grinding training gets kind of applied to all aspects of life. And so that it can create issues like in family situations. It's like, oh, we know that you're used to having every minute of your day scheduled, mom or dad, but then when you come home and you have us scheduled every minute of the day, or you're trying to have all of these lofty goals, or we know that things like decision fatigue are real. And so if you're making really challenging decisions and discernment all day long, and then you're telling yourself you should be coming home and making all these kinds of decisions outside of the workplace, our brains need to switch channels, and we need to recharge our batteries. And so I do see a lot of the physicians that I'm working with are coming from that place of overwork, of kind of being used to being in that mode all the time. And so one of the things I like to help them think about is like the life does not have to have your foot on the accelerator down all the time. And then on your weekends, you're trying to put the brakes down too, because that's going to burn your engine out. At some point, we got to learn how to get our foot off the gas, to think about still doing what matters to us and getting and achieving things. It's not like you just have to totally, say, well, I can't do anything when I'm not working, but thinking and creatively within your life, how we can co-create an idea and a roadmap to have some space where there is some refueling time. There's some ability to, I just about sent my water bottle flying there. There's some ability to have there's really no such thing as pure work-life balance. I think sometimes people think that that's
Mhm.
something out there that other people are able to achieve, but there is healthier work-life synergy and
Yeah.
connection and integration. And so having somebody else give you some outside perspective on that can be wildly helpful sometimes.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I know both of you have some exciting upcoming plans to collaborate and reach out with some workshops and um, some a workshop that's coming up relatively soon in January, actually, that is coming up with the two of you on a weekend at the end of January. Can you, Gabriella, can you tell me about that, and Jill, tell us about what you guys are planning in terms of
Absolutely.
the overall.
Mhm. Uh, can I say the title at this point, Jen?
I think so. Yeah, I think so.
Okay. So stat, when I saw that, I love the first word stat. One day to get your life back. And so it will be a 1 day workshop at the end of January, January 30th, I believe on a Saturday, where the three of us will be present, and Jill and I will be taking our wonderful group of physicians participants through a number of exercises to raise awarenesses, to shift minds, sets, to also provide specific tools that they can apply right now to their lives, to really get out of the weeds, if you will, and start taking a breath and a step back. We are going to do some visioning as well, and establishing, reconnecting with values and vision. At the same time, some time management tools, things that can impact the life like right away. And so that's why it's stat. Jill, did you want to add to that? And I think there was a lot
And
that we
I'm
wanted to
I'm so
cover in the.
excited. It's yeah, we've had so much fun thinking about putting this together based on what our not only just our clients, but also we've reached out to a much larger physician network, all of us, and said, "What do you
Mhm.
need right now?" And we took the places where there was a lot of crossover and saying, "Oh, this is where people need support right now. This is a great way for them to sort of start the new year with some new ideas, some new ways to shape." A roadmap, if you will, for where they want to go and where they want to be.
Mhm.
And so it's been really fun. Our Gabriella and I love working together because we have these really balances of our experiences and what we love doing. And it's exciting to us to know the possibility of working with clients and seeing where, when they do put these tools in play in their life, and when they are able to reframe some of the places where they've been stuck or spinning, how much
Mhm.
richer life is, and just how
Absolutely.
much more capable they feel to move through challenging things, and to trust themselves, and to have these ways that they can move forward, and that you can move forward as a physician. So it's an exciting, it's been really fun to put it together, and I think it's even exceeded what my wildest dreams would be in terms of what we're going to be able to offer people in that short amount of time, that I think is going to have a really big lever impact as they're moving
Mhm.
forward.
Yep. The key word is
Absolutely.
stat. So awesome.
A lot of progress in one day. That's our goal.
Yeah,
And you
absolutely.
guys are also putting together, I know that you guys are also working toward some programs on resilience. And I'm curious if you might both, Jill, if you could start and talk about perhaps some of your experience working on that topic in the past, and then on a little bit about programs that we have upcoming, which will be available. We will be working with institutions to offer these programs to tailored to their needs for their medical staff, as well as having programs available to individuals to join with this. Jill,
Yeah,
can you
so
tell us a little
I
bit about your resilience?
sure. I like to I like to tell people, it's like, what if, a fairy tale that we'd grown up with started out with, once upon a time there was a young woman who said she wanted to be part of the royal family one day. She was the end, right? there's not much of a story there. There's no plot twists. There's no miracles. There's nothing interesting that happens. And a lot of times when we're listening to stories and we're, learning about things in the world, the stuff that makes it fascinating and rich and harrowing, whether they're, made up fiction stories like a fairy tale or real life stories, are those plot twists, the things that went differently than somebody would have originally written the script for or dreamed about. And I think we have been living of course, massive worldwide plot twist since February and March of 2020. And it's not a plot twist any of us would written because of all of the challenges that it has brought. And at the same time, for the challenges and the terrible things that have happened because of the pandemic, there have been things that have come out of it that have been extremely rich and meaningful as well. And to me, learning how we can strengthen the muscle of resilience. We all have it within our body. It's like our biceps, but sometimes it's stronger on some people than it is on others. Learning how to strengthen resilience is really learning how to be able to um, uh, ride those plot twists, experience them, see that maybe even though it's not the direction we were intending or would have liked it to go, that it might be taking us to a place that could deliver something of meaning. So that's kind of how I frame and like to think about resilience. And then I love brainstorming and talking to people about ways that then you can practically and tactically and tangibly strengthen that resilience muscle and think about what the benefits that it can bring in your life. So that's exciting to me, to be able to think about how we can co-create some conversations and some information sessions in a short, digestible, meaningful way for people who are still feeling a little gobsmacked by how massive the plot twist was that we all have experienced this year. So I'd love to hear what you think about that, Gabriella, and what your thoughts are on resilience.
No, I think, from as a physician, once a doctor, always a doctor. That doesn't really change. There's always that that calling to serve and that calling to help, and whatever the circumstances are. And I think that doctors as a whole, and I was looking this up as well, there is some research to that compared kind of resilience scores, if you will, from physicians compared to the general population or whatever. And so in general, you're looking at a group of people, healthcare workers in general, and physicians in that group that are very resilient to begin with. Who have a capacity to make on-the-spot decisions, go from point A to point B very, very quickly, who are thinking on their feet all the time, constantly adapting all the time, and which is very, very important. And then there's always that point where stressors are so high that it's just, there's a point for every human being that it stops. There's a breaking point at some point. So resilience, as everything that you said, Jill, absolutely. And it's also about um, reframing so that we can increase our capacity to not just deal with high stress, because there's a certain amount that really no human being really should have to deal with that level of stress all the time. But really to be able to make a little more wiggle room for self, and to take a little more time for self, and to replenish and re-energize. And that is still part of resilience. That is still part of growth and adaptability to a difficult challenge, difficult environment, and how to make that a little less difficult, and turn it into something that says, okay, well, I'm growing and learning from this. And so that, I think, to me, is from a kind of broader perspective, which is kind of where I might come from space a lot of times, is to really be able to increase to help increase a person's capacity to just, give themselves some breathing room. And to me, that is an integral part of resilience work.
Yeah, I love that, because
sense.
that's kind of right. That's the plot twist, kind of making space for the thing to happen, and then thinking about how am I able to be here in a more sustainable way, longer term. As you said, I may have the superhuman ability to kind of barrel through, in the midst of it, how do I think about this as a long term, and make sure I nurture my resilience by giving it the space and kind of refueling myself so that it can be there, for the next time it's going to be needed as well.
Exactly.
And speaking to
Well
the
said.
humanity of physicians, I think is also, a key part of what what you said, because I think sometimes physicians can get caught up in sort of the expectation that they are going to perform in some sort of a way that's a little bit, um, a little bit beyond the expectation maybe that we have for other people in other careers. And so sometimes just to take a step back and, be allowed to just recognize the humanity in yourself, and and appreciate that side of yourself, and um, begin to find ways to value that and put that side of yourself into a place of importance, outside of just your career. I think that's another major factor that people often are looking for, from what I understand.
Yeah, great
Exactly. And
point.
it
That's a really
doesn't
good point.
take away. Yeah, absolutely. It doesn't, and it adds to, I think, a person's ability to serve and to be in service. Because if you're be able to serve from a healthy place, a grounded place, a place where you recognize your own humanity and your own strengths and even weaknesses as well, and being okay with that and being acceptance of that, I think it's a very powerful place to be when moving into a life of a call as a physician from a place of humanity and love and compassion and passion, and at the same time a certain level of vulnerability uh, adds to strength, and it's quite a powerful thing and a beautiful thing.
And
I love that.
Gabriella, we had the privilege
Mhm.
of hearing a success story, on another podcast episode, and I'm really also interested in hearing a success story from you, Jill, about a recent coaching, or just a coaching experience with physicians. If you don't mind telling us just about a particular story that might come to mind.
Yeah, and I'll share this, only because this person has shared it in a public forum as well. So I know that they don't mind me sharing the information. But I was working with somebody who was a very, just extremely, successful and a strong surgeon in a major medical center, a teaching institution. And it had sort of come to the time of their career, where they felt like it was time to apply for academic promotion. And kids at home, other life things happening, and it just always seemed like it got put on the back burner. And there was just when looking at the calendar, there really isn't space to do this, but I really want to do it, but I feel this pressure and I keep putting it off. And so that was the conundrum that they came to me with. And so we mapped out, I helped from an outside lens perspective, co-strategize ways that, without having, because it felt like there was this sort of situation where something I was getting, the client felt like they were really going to have to give up something important that really mattered to them in order
Mm.
to reach this other goal. And so what we did is worked within the time and space available in their life. We looked at ways that maybe there was some inefficiencies in a way of that had been around for a while, that was draining energy but not really delivering anything meaningful. Adjusted that, broke things down into a ridiculously easy roadmap that was very doable. And after 5 years or so of saying, "Oh, I think this is my year, I'm going to actually try to do this," they went for it and they got it. And so it was just, and I wasn't the one who had the achievement, who had the body of work, who had done the incredible hard work to earn the promotion by any means. But it was just that partnering with somebody from the outside who could look at things with a fresh eye to help roadmap that out. And so that was a really meaningful and positive experience, I think, for both of us. And I really enjoyed it.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, thank you both so much for being here today and for telling your stories and talking with us to give us an overview of your experience and what you're bringing to DocWorking. We are absolutely thrilled to have you both here. It's such a privilege to work with both of you. And I look forward to many more podcasts with many interesting guests with both of you. Thank you so much.